This is the Speak Easy podcast where we go behind the scenes in what it takes to be a successfully paid speaker or author. I am your host, Alexa V. Spelzer, the voice coach, professional speaker, certified life coach, all of that jazz, but founder of the World Voice League, a virtual network of female speakers coming together to impact social change. And so, I know you saw the topic for today. And for some, this may be a trigger. I get it. I understand. But for those that are listening in, I want to say to you, this is your episode to do some deep diving. This is your episode to go behind the veil and really look at the inner me so that way we can get rid of the enemy, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's about growth, education, empowerment. Listen, growth, education, empowerment. That is what we are here for. So I'm super excited to have our guest with me today. Hello, Roni.
Hi. Hello to the audience of Speak Easy Podcast.
Yes, I am so excited to have you on today. Okay. Hashtag sidebar. I love her story. And so I read her bio like multiple times. And I said, you know what? We're going to be friends. She doesn't know it yet. But we will be.
I believe it.
Simply because
same passion.
And when she came on, her energy was just infectious. So I absolutely love it. So tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive into today's topic.
Sounds good. It's interesting. I actually teared up a little bit as you were doing your intro because, interesting enough, this particular topic of domestic violence, although I've come through it, right, there's still a journey. There's still a journey that needs to happen. And it's a very vulnerable place still to talk about openly and to share publicly. But there's healing in that. There's healing in it for me. There's healing in it for someone who may be listening to this podcast today. And so I just got a little teary-eyed, excuse me, y'all, but it's still fresh, you know? So I'm originally from Queens, New York City. Shout out to my New Yorkers out there. Raised in Astoria, Queens projects with my single mama. She did the best she can raising me and my older brother. I lived there basically all my life. I didn't move out until I was about 20, 21. And it was at a time where, me and my mom had decided that this particular location, we were over it. I had lost my brother due to violence there in the streets. And so we knew going past the same street that he was murdered on, that would be short-lived. And so it was important for us to figure out a different way. And so my mom did. She pulled us out of the hood and took us to Delaware. I know people like Delaware. Like, who lives in Delaware? Black folks in Delaware? Yes, we are. We were in there. It was about 3 of us. But we were in there. But that's where I lived for about 2 years and then decided to get on my own and go on my own journey and moved to Georgia. And it was funny because that was where I met my husband. I met the guy who I had my very first fight with, my very first fight in my home. And it was weird because, again, growing up in the hood, like I was loved by everybody. I had like maybe one fight and I didn't pick near one of them. I was the peacemaker. Like, I'll make you laugh before I fight you. And so to have to fight in my own home was very weird to me, especially because it was someone that I loved, I admired, and I saw him for who he could be and supported him to no end. So it was weird that I had to fight in my own home. And so, interesting enough, that story can go on and on. Not only did I stay in that particular relationship for about 14 years, I divorced him and went back after 4 years. And so that statistic of it takes a woman, 7 to 11 times to leave a domestic violent household, that statistic is real. It's real. And I wish I could explain the why behind it. Like, why do you go back? How do you muster up the courage to go and then go right back? And I haven't been able to identify that part yet. But thankfully, I mustered up the courage and got away for good. And it's been about 4 years now. and I have no intentions on going back at all. So that's a part of it. And then I'll tell you, this is complete transparency, right? I got a no judgment zone audience, I know, on the Speak Easy podcast. In between that first divorce, guys, I met someone else. And the guy came across as being my best friend, right? He was the charmer, he was handsome, but he deep down had an issue with alcoholism. And so how weird that I would leave one domestic violence relationship and go into another. And that one almost killed me. That guy literally had his hands wrapped around my neck and almost killed me. And all I could do was muster up the name of Jehovah. I just screamed out Jehovah, and this man fell down to the bed and curled up in a fetal position. And that was my getaway time. But throughout that experience, it challenged me to look a little bit deeper. I needed to understand what in the world was in me that was attracting this individual, and then what was allowing me to stay. Like, I'm telling you, I got real tired of sharing the victim story, if that makes sense. I wanted to share the triumph and overcoming story. And so I did a lot of homework, y'all. I ain't even gonna lie to you, but the kids say no cap. I did a lot of internal searching, some self-inventory, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was pretty tough.
I have to agree with you there on so many different levels. You know, when I look at my own scenarios when it came to domestic violence, when I look at what I witnessed with my mother and, you know, all of those things, we have to understand that going back and doing that inner work is important because there were seeds sown. And I always tell people, you know, it's the seeds that were sown that we're looking at the fruit of it now. People, you know, always ask that question, why did they go back? Why didn't they just leave? Because you got to understand, when there is somebody better catch this. When there is a seed that is sown and a tree grows, the roots of that tree have become so big that it takes a lot of work for you to be able to uproot that tree. It's not an easy process.
Ooh, that's the painful part. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I thought about it, man, maybe it's easier for me not to deal with this root that had taken up so much space and just go back to what's comfortable, go back to what is normal, right? What is normal. And so, but you know what is so worth it? The work that I went through, hashtag you need a life coach. A life coach that I met was willing to step in and shake me up a bit. She challenged me with some real life activities, right? Some self-reflecting activities, some self-love and appreciation activities. And it allowed me to see where the root was. And for me, it started when I was 6 years old. I was molested in the care of a babysitter. And then again at age 8 by someone in my own home. And at that age, how in the world do you process that? As adults, we have a hard time processing sexual assault. So at 6 and 8, how do you even begin that? I didn't have counseling. My mom wasn't paying money for counseling at that part. That was, hey, this happened. We're going to get through it. And that was it. That was it. But guess what? Not dealing with that stuff led into a lifestyle of promiscuity. It led to a lifestyle of attracting broken men. Why? Because the root in me had not been addressed. it showed up in other areas too. I had so many dreams and aspirations that I wanted to accomplish when I was a young girl. Fear crept in there because I'm thinking this deep down shame that I have, oh my God, it's going to be exposed. Someone's going to find out. I mean, this is like, it might as well be post-traumatic stress disorder. Exactly. How it shows up in your life. And until I was ready to get real, I knew that I was going to continue to attract the same type of people. I knew that I was going to continue to live in fear. I knew that I was going to continue to suppress the true Roni. And ultimately, not only was I going to be hurt by that, but the people that I have in my real world who I need to affect and impact and help inspire and help uplift, they would be impacted too if I don't move with purpose. And so I'm glad I did. I'm glad I had that accountability partner. I'm glad I started this journey, and I've seen some miraculous things happen in my life as a result of the transformation. And I just knew that it was my heart to serve others who may be in that same situation. And I'm just happy too that finally my calling has been identified. And it's unfortunate that it had to be my mess that winds up being my strategic message, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
I love it. I love it. So now we titled this particular episode that jagged road to domestic violence, because when we think about the inner work, there is a lot that goes on in our childhood. There's a lot that goes on within our early, developmental stages that affects how we interact as adults. And interestingly enough, many people either don't want to believe that, or they feel shameful because you think, we've been told by now you should get over it.
Don't get me started there.
That's, that's that statement, by now you should be over it. It happened so many years ago.
Really? I totally disagree. Everyone has their own individual journey. My God, I just told you how painful it is to get real sometimes with yourself. And remember, in many households, you're told just to get over it. You're told to sweep it under the rug. You're told to not share what's going on in the household. You're told to, keep our business our business. That is absolute crap. That's crap. Because then you grow up in as an adult and you've established a habit that is unhealthy. Now you got this thing eating you up from the inside out. And you're wondering why you're sick all the time. You're wondering why you got mood swings. You're wondering why your relationships with your friends and your loved ones are impacted negatively. There's a common denominator in there. And unless you're willing to do the work, it's going to be a challenge. But guess what? Who is anyone else to tell me when I need to get over something? You don't have that right. This is me. This is our individual walk. You don't have the right to tell me when I need to get over something and when I need to, not get over it. Like, that's not your option. That's mine. Now, hopefully, the beholder of that thing should be willing to go through the process so that way they can live the full potential that God intended them to live, because that's the meat and potatoes of it all. It really is. And until the individual, like me, until I figured out that I wanted more out of life, like I wanted to start my healing process and I wanted to stop attracting the negative darkness that was inside of me, until I determined that, it wasn't going to make a difference what anybody said. And so I took ownership, and I think that's important for us to do. Yes, we've gone through some unforgivable, right? I'll quote that too, unforgivable things. And yes, we get angry. Yes, we want to throw things at people. Yes, we want to tell you where to go, But in that same regard, man, that forgiveness is for us. It was for me all the way. I had to forgive. I had to work on the process of healing. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be any good to myself, to my family, or to the people that I need to help in the future.
Most definitely. And so our studio audience has a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
And Raj Jones came in and said, we can't fulfill the journey without completing the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what it is. It's definitely
Honestly, completing the process, I don't think that that'll ever happen until you take your last breath. That's for me. Okay. I do believe that there are some preliminary things that you do have to complete. Like for me, I needed to identify the root. I needed to identify that because without it, I was going to continue to attract the same type of experiences, right? So yeah, I think there's some preliminary things that must be, but you have to go through the process and it's going to take a lifetime. There's no time stamp on when you'll be completely healed. That womb is always going to be there. I'm always going to have the memory of that 6-year-old. I wrote a letter to that 6-year-old and it's powerful. I'll share it with you too once we get off the podcast. And if you want to share it with your audience, you are welcome to do so. But I named it A Letter to Her. And I take my 6-year-old self that's still in me. Think about that. She didn't die. She's me with flaws and all.
every time I see a brownie, she rides.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And so I had to write a letter to her and let her know that she can trust me now, that I'm not going to be silent anymore, and that I need her to go with me on this journey of healing. I need her to go with me on this journey because we have to write our way out. We have to do some things. And for me, writing is my outlet. So I wrote my way out. That's actually going to be the name of my independent book and my workshop because it was important for me to tell this younger self that we still have to move. We have to move with purpose. We have to be intentional about our next steps, the pain and all, right? I don't forget it. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you're ever completely like over it. Like there's no over it. I don't understand what that means. It's what do you do with that? What do you do with those circumstances? How do you turn them from mess to message? How do you turn that to victim to victory? How do you turn that to from a tragedy to triumph? And so that's what I think that we need to spend a little bit more energy and time and focus on, in my opinion.
I agree with you there. Now, one of the things that I think we don't discuss as much, we talk about the us. We talk about, the inner work that we have to do. But let's look at the outer work that we have to do. Because I found that one of the hardest things for us to complete during this process is severing some ties.
Girl, you know where I had to start? After I left my husband for the second time, and I'm completely divorced now, so he is truly my ex-husband. I did not go into another relationship for 3 years. This was the first time I had ever been single. Ever. I'm 41. I just turned 41 on Sunday. I had never been single, ever. I'm talking about from the second grade, I had a boyfriend. And there was the same boyfriend all the way through middle school up until high school. And then I had another boyfriend for 7 years, and then another boyfriend for 7 years, then another boyfriend for 14 years. So I had never been single. And so I created this space for me to get real with myself, love myself. Can't nobody tell me nothing now. I love myself, and I don't need nobody to tell me that I'm pretty. I don't need nobody to tell me that I'm smart. I don't need nobody to tell me, hey, atta girl, you can go do it. I tell myself. And it wasn't until I enjoyed that period of loneliness and singleness, and I appreciated that space. And I love it. I love that. That was probably the best part of this journey, being single.
I know that. That's literally, it's the best part, and it's the part that people, now this is the thing, is when you're single, it doesn't mean I'm lonely. And people get that like misconstrued within their heads, that single means I'm desperate. Single means I'm lonely. It means I'm depressed. No, single means I'm an individual.
Yeah.
And I'm going to rock out in this individual space. And when I choose to allow someone to rock out with me, they're going to be the right one.
Let me tell you why, though. In my singleness, I figured out what I love. I figured out what career aspirations I truly want to do deep down inside and have put off for so long. I created a mission for myself. Like, I know my mission is to uplift and inspire others to reach their fullest potential. I created some non-negotiable values, right? So some principles that govern me. And so that way, when I meet an individual, whether it's business related, whether it's romance, whether it's just a platonic relationship, and I ask, hey, what are the goals that you have for your future? What are your non-negotiable values that govern you? And if at any time it doesn't align with mine, I know that that's not someone that I need to be spending my time and energy with in this close proximity. So it's interesting what that singleness, what that alone time will do for you. It's like the blinders will be removed and you'll be able to see things so much clearly, and we'll be able to start making some actual practical plans for your life. It's a powerful phase to be. And I thought it was scary at first. Like, I was wondering how I was going to be able to manage my life in that singleness. It was unfamiliar to me. It was like uncharted territories. And so I was afraid. But boy, oh boy, the woman that I became in that process, you can't tell me nothing. It's my life. It's my story. I own it. And I'm taking it to new levels. Thank God. Through writing, through speaking, through coaching. Come on now. What greater impact?
Girl, you hit on them non-negotiables. And I think that it's an interesting set of words. Simply because we know on this side that most times when women are in domestic violent relationships, they are people pleasing. And so it's very hard in the midst of that to create non-negotiables and stand firm in your non-negotiables.
So true.
But what would you say would be something before we get to that point for us to be able to set those non-negotiables in stone?
Yes, like you have to get real with yourself, right? So if integrity is one of your non-negotiables, and you have to be a woman or man of integrity yourself, meaning if you are given a project, or you're given an idea and you're asked to move along with it, if it conflicts with who you are and your core, and you know that there's an unrest there, you know that there's something there that you don't quite rock with, you got to be willing enough to say no, and then back it up with, nah, it doesn't quite align with where I'm going with my life, and that could be $1 million idea. But if it conflicts with who you are and where you want to take your life and what brand you want to attach to your name, you got to say no. You have to say no. Be willing to walk away. Same with honesty. If honesty is a part of your non-negotiable values, I mean, you're going to be honest to the point it's going to be uncomfortable. If someone asks you to be faithful and you tell them, nah, I ain't ready for that, you got to be honest and tell them, hey, this ain't the relationship that I think you want, because I don't quite have that honesty and faithfulness down pat yet. You got to be willing to say that. And so even for me, I had to be willing to say, hey, I'm not quite ready for a relationship yet. I can be your friend. We can go out on a couple of dates, but I'm not ready to be your woman yet. I'm still working on some things within me. I haven't quite mastered this particular area of insecurity yet. Hello. I haven't quite mastered this part of my jealousy area yet. So I had to be willing to be honest with myself and say, no, I'm not ready yet. But it took a lot of quiet nights. It took a lot of quiet days. It took a lot of my cell phone being off. It took a lot of writing. I needed to understand who I wanted to be. What brand did I want attached to me? If I'm going to be able to make an impact in someone else's life, I need them to know that I'm authentic. How can I be authentic with someone else if I'm not truly being authentic with myself? And so that part is important, y'all. Honestly, I think that's critical to get real about what your core values are, and then make it a non-negotiable. You're not going to budge. That you're not going to budge, because budging, creating this space where you're like flowing with the wind, you're not grounded in your core values, man, you could go right back into your old patterns and old behaviors. You have to hold yourself accountable for something. And then not just yourself, but now you can say, no, if I'm holding myself accountable to these level of standards, surely any person I come in contact with who wants to be involved with me romantically, who wants to be involved with me in business, they're gonna value that, and they're gonna step up and do the same, or this is not the relationship for me.
Most definitely. And so I always ask this question of everyone that comes onto the platform. Yeah. What has been a blunder for you so far?
All right, a blunder, meaning a lesson, a mistake, a problem, what?
All of the above.
Oh.
I'll say it like this, because I know women coming out of domestic violent relationships, again, we talked about being that people pleaser and trying to shift that sometimes. Coming out of domestic violent relationships, sometimes there's issues with trust. And so in this journey so far, has there been a blunder where you look back and say, that wasn't the best decision?
Yep. So I had officially divorced, and I had someone approach me, and, they had given me these great compliments. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so beautiful. And they were like, hey, why don't we see where this relationship can go, right? Now, this is like very new. So I wasn't quite at the position where I had written out my non-negotiables and that I set aside some core values for myself. I hadn't even identified my mission at that point. I guess this is why I hold so strongly on how important that is first, because again, someone can come and say the right thing and you'll become distracted. So this particular distraction came, and he said something that was like critical. He said, hey, I know you're the type of woman you're going to take care of all of your wants. Why don't you, let me take care? No, he said, I know you're the type of woman that's always going to take care of your needs. Why don't you, let me spoil you and take care of the things that you want? And I was like, dang, I ain't never had that approach before. that was a little different. I ain't never had nobody say, let me just spoil you with gifts and money. So I was like, I wonder what that's going to be like. What do you expect from me? And he was flat out and honest what he wanted. And I was like, so you want me to be your sugar mom, your sugar baby? And I was like, what the hell is out here? Because, I had been always in a relationship. So I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know what to expect, y'all. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I was just like, what? That's what we're doing now? But guess what? I had some decisions to make, right? I could have said, well, that sounds good. No commitment. Spoiled rotten. Well, okay. And so I did it. I did it for about 4 months. I did it, y'all. I did it for 4 months. And when I tell you, it was just like the past. He wanted to get a key to my place. He wanted to know who was coming, who was going. He wanted to know my bank account information. He wanted to know all. And I was just like, whoa, where I am in my process right now. This was fun, but I'm going to need you to roll up on out of here, brother. And that's what we did. And so for 4 months, though, it took me 4 months to identify what was happening. And thankfully, I stayed single. Like, I didn't let nobody else into my personal space for another 4 years. And I'm grateful that I did. Because, again, look what was coming my way right out the gate, and I was willing to roll and swing with that. No, buddy, I needed to get real with myself and get to the core of why I was attracting this type of nonsense. And I'm glad I did, because look, let me see something like that coming today. That ain't happening today. I'm going to tell you right now. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. Because this girl, it's not going to work. I recognize you from a mile away, brother. So that won't work for me today. Thank God. Just took a little work, though.
It was. For me, it was.
You didn't expect that one, huh?
No, I sure did not. But I can relate.
Yeah.
For me, it was, well, you know what? You're a single mom. You know, you'd be able to move you and your kids down here. We could get a place, and your brother can come, because at the time I was taking care of my brother as well. Your brother can come. We'll work on finding him a job and all this other stuff. And I was like, I was like, this, it really do sound good. It did sound good. I lasted a little more than you. I lasted a year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it's not. Yeah. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And
I'm glad we could be honest about that, though. Some people will frown on that, but listen, I'm telling y'all, you have to own your story. This is my story, and can nobody take it away. You can judge, you can throw your stones, all that stuff is okay. But the woman I am today, though, as a result of going through that, you can't tell me nothing. Nothing. It's my story. It's my journey. And I learned from that.
I grew from that part for real. So I can definitely relate. The approach wasn't the same though, because I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I wish the approach was the same, but it ended up being the same, because he said, oh, I want to support you. And as a single mother, you're like, oh, of course we want support. Of course we want whoever we connect with to be somebody that's willing to, be there for our kids and things of that nature. So that was the sweet spot to get in. But then it was some little things that I was just like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That didn't sound too good. That didn't sound too right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to let it go after a year.
Amen. Thank God we did. That would have been a whole nother level of trouble.
True.
Because the way that I'm set up right now, the way my mind is set up right now, a man who is, his intent is to put his hands on me, his intent is to hurt me with his hands, it won't be good for him. The way my mind and body is set up right now, it won't be good. I've been taking some boxing. I got my stands right. You know what I mean? I know how to get with you now. You don't want this title boxing effort right now.
Got that enough spirit. That J-No moment.
Hashtag that. Thank God. Yes.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love this interview, guys. And I love this interview because I love presenting people to you that you can see your personal story in theirs. You can see your journey in their journey, not just what they've been through, but where they are and where they're going. So let them know what you have coming up and how they can reach out to you for more information.
Yes. Okay. So you can reach out to me on all social media avenues. On Facebook, you can follow me at Roni Benjamin, Benjamin. First name is spelled Roni. That throws people off a little bit. And then on Instagram is Roni, Roni Uplifts, Uplifts. My website is RoniMBenjamin.com. I am launching my speaking career, and it feels so good. Yes, hashtag Speaker's Life feels so good. And I'm also coaching, so individuals who also aspire to be public speakers but are just nervous and not quite, comfortable at the front of the room just yet. I coach them into the place that they are, and they can share their story from stages all around the world. I also am a certified life coach, just as you. And so I help individuals who are ready to do the work. And I think it's important for me to say that out loud, You have to get to a place where you are ready to do the work because it requires a lot of work, but it's so worth it. And my method that I use is a genuine, authentic place. And so, you'll definitely have growth. You'll find the person, male or female, that you are called to be. And I'm just, I love what I do. I love it. I love what I do. And I look forward to the future and the number of individuals that I'm able to impact as a result. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, thank you for coming. This episode has been absolutely amazing. Guys, when it comes to domestic violence, that's a heart spot for me. Growing up in a domestic violent, home, and then having my own interactions with domestic violence, as it's impacted my life. It's impacted how I engage with other women. It's impacted how I engage with men. And so, you guys, having this discussion is not just important, it's critical at this stage. It's critical for us to have this conversation, share it out, tag a person. And one of the things that I want to leave you guys with is check on your sisters. Mm-hmm. Because one of the biggest things is that we still don't talk about it enough when we're in the midst of the situation. It does take time for them to get out. It does take time for them to get the strength, the finances, the resources, the connections. It takes some time to get out. Check on your sisters, because we know that it's 1 in 4 women that are in these abusive relationships. That means, think about all the girls that you went to high school with. Think about all the girls on your cheerleading squad. Think about all of the women that are coming to your women's meeting at church. If 1 in 4 are being abused, and we're never checking on them to see, who's the 1 in 4, trying to find out so we can help, then we're leaving them stranded sometimes.
That's real talk right there. And don't be distracted by their response to you. That is just a defense mechanism. Guys, it is embarrassing to be in a domestic violence relationship. It is not something that we are proud of. As a matter of fact, we do a great job covering stuff up. We do a great job protecting the abuser. So please, if you do reach out and you hear the woman say, mind your business, or you hear them snap out at you for stepping in, that is just a defense mechanism, guys. It may even be them trying to protect you from stepping in because they're that much afraid of the other person. Please don't give up. Please don't give up. As a matter of fact, one part you just reminded me, so thank you for this. One part is that it wasn't until a close friend of mine saw a little glimpse of the personality of my ex-husband, and she was bold enough to call me on it. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized, oh, so this is a problem? It wasn't until someone else noticed it and called me on it, y'all. So please don't give up. Don't give up on them. Keep calling them. Keep checking on them. Send them letters if they're not answering the phone. Just let them know that there's someone out there that still cares and that is not full of judgment, that, you still have their best intentions at heart, and just be a friend. Just be a friend. Don't judge, y'all. Seriously, do what you can to get them out of that situation, but remove the judgment. It's life-saving.
Most definitely. I'm excited for being able to have this platform to be able to talk about this particular topic, not just because of the guests that come on that have dealt with domestic violence, but because of the listeners and viewers who can be impacted in some way, shape, or form. Guys, we cannot wait for someone else to be the change. I think we've waited long enough. We can't wait any longer. Our women are dying. Our children are dying. And even if we don't have the physical strength to, carry somebody out of the front door, there's something we can all do. You can donate. You can be that listening ear. You can start a group at your church or in your neighborhood. And we're talking about, the road to domestic violence. Some of us need to be the ones going into these schools and talking to these children about the choking game and about, Russian roulette and all of these things that they think is cool because it's a trust thing, but it's not. And so, guys, I definitely want to challenge you, encourage you, empower you to be the voice for somebody else. With that being said, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening in on this particular episode of the Speakeasy podcast. Let us know how it resonated with you. Share it out with someone who may need it. And with that being said, guys, until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.